The NATO Leaders Summit wrapped up this week in Lithuania. Canada committed to doubling the size of its NATO deployment in Latvia. But Prime Minister Justin Trudeau still left feeling the heat, particularly on Canada's defence spending. A Wall Street Journal editorial calls Canada a military-free rider and labeled its military spending, quote, pathetic. In total, Canada spends 1.38% of its GDP on defence, ranking it 25th out of 30 NATO allies on this metric. Anita Anand is the Minister of National Defence. Minister, the Wall Street Journal is not holding back. It calls Canada a, quote, military-free rider in NATO. What's your response to that?
Canada's spending on defence has nearly doubled in the 10 years beginning in 2014. And along with Germany and the United States, Canada is a leader in terms of getting new money out the door, and that's on NATO's own calculations. The bottom line is that our defense spending is increasing. We put $8 billion on the table in budget 2022. Under our current defense policy, military spending is increasing by 70% beginning in 2017. And of course, for NORAD modernization and continental defense, we put almost $40 billion on the table. So that is the type of effort we are making. We are moving on an upward trajectory, and we will continue to do so, given the importance globally and nationally of security and defense.
But it can't feel good when you wake up in the morning and see that one of the top U.S. papers is essentially calling Canada a freeloader. They say our defense spending levels are pathetic.
What I need to be focused on as the Minister of National Defense is making sure we are making investments that matter. I was in Latvia this week, where we put on the table $2.6 billion for leading the enhanced Forward Presence Battle Group, along with 10 other countries there. We've been in Latvia since 2017. We'll be also supplementing and moving to brigade level with up to 2,200 troops by 2026. People should recognize that that is a tangible commitment. That's boots on the ground, protecting NATO's eastern flank. And in fact, I had countries coming up to me at NATO Summit in Vilnius this week asking if they could be part of Canada's Forward Presence Battle Group in Latvia. So that is the way in which Canada is perceived, a leader, certainly in terms of NATO's Eastern Front. And very few countries can say, for example, that they have trained almost 40,000 Ukrainian soldiers. We are recognized as a leader, and I certainly felt that in Vilnius this week.
But Minister, I don't have to tell you that a number of our allies are fixated on that 2% of GDP spending figure. Are you personally advocating at the cabinet table for Canada to hit the 2% target?
I will continue to advocate, as well as many other advocates for increased spending, that our upward trajectory does continue. Remember that under the Conservative government, defense spending dipped below 1%. So we have been addressing the issue that you're highlighting, the need to continue to increase defense spending. And that means not only investing in capabilities. We signed a contract this year for 88 F-35s, for example, but also increasing our numbers. We are down about 10,000 members in the Canadian Armed Forces, and I, as Minister, will continue to build a Canadian Armed Forces where everyone who puts on a uniform can do so protected, respected, and empowered when they serve this country.
My colleague Murray Brewster reported this week that your government is trying to expand what's included in the defense spending calculation. You want to include things like space, cyber, and artificial intelligence research. Is that Canada's approach here?
One of the important contributions that Canada makes is boots on the ground, as well as in other domains, such as cyber. And certainly NATO itself is recognizing the importance of misinformation and disinformation and addressing those from a security and defense perspective. So Canada will continue to be a leader, not only in terms of aiding Ukraine in the cyber sphere, but also in terms of offering our contributions Ukrainians to NATO. In addition, this week in Vilnius, I signed a declaration that Canada will be participating in the F-16 coalition, so protecting NATO's and Ukraine's skies in that respect. And we will also be hosting and opening a NATO Climate Change and Security Center right here in Canada in Montreal. So all of these are tangible contributions to global peace and security, and recognizing that it is also a matter of taking into account that climate change and the cyber sphere are other aspects of defense and security in that landscape that we need to take into account.
Let's talk about the summit. Ukraine was disappointed that NATO didn't offer the country a timeline for joining the alliance. Instead, it got kind of a vague line in the communique that said Ukraine would be invited to join the alliance, quote, when the allies agree and conditions are met. President Zelensky has called that absurd. Do you understand why the Ukrainian president is so disappointed by this?
I had a bilateral meeting with President Zelensky and Prime Minister Trudeau just this week. And in fact, what I heard from President Zelensky in that meeting was gratitude for Canada's continued military contributions to Ukraine's security, as well as the need for more military equipment. That is why Canada, with its most recent announcement of another $500 million, will continue to purchase military equipment for Ukraine. For example, we will be purchasing more cameras for drones that Ukraine is using. And certainly when President Zelensky was around the table at NATO, we all broke out into applause. He and Ukraine are part of the NATO family. That was 100% clear. And indeed, the requirement for a roadmap from Ukraine has been removed, and Ukraine will sit as a council member. So certainly, unlike other countries and the processes that they had to go through, I'm thinking of my Estonian counterparts, for example, Ukraine will not have the same process. It will be expedited and will be taking place as soon as conditions allow.
The U.S. is providing Ukraine with some cluster munitions. Canada is a signatory to a convention that essentially bans the use of these types of munitions. Did you raise this with your American counterpart? And are you disappointed with the U.S. decision to actually go ahead and provide this type of munition to Ukraine?
Canada's position on cluster munitions and landmines is longstanding. We have been a leader and signed the convention relating to abandoning the use of cluster munitions. And so we stand firmly against their use as a matter of international law, as well as a matter of morality. The reality is that they are dangerous. And yes, we did raise it with the Americans. We will continue to support Ukraine with military aid and equipment. As I said, we've put over $2 billion of military aid on the table. We have also transported over 10 million pounds of military aid and equipment on behalf of our NATO allies to Ukraine. So we are at the forefront of military aid and equipment to Ukraine. We're recognized as such, and we will continue to do our important work there.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you so much to the Minister of National Defence, Anita Anand.
Thank you so much. Take care.